Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Zombie Train. This is episode number 237. And I'm your host, Ellis, otherwise known as Train Man, and we are on the Tolbrin Peninsula, doing some more scenery work, doing minor scenery work. And if you want to see this in normal speed, go check out Under Construction, which is coming out right about the same time. I apologize for the lateness of this video. I did go home for the weekend, so I was not in the vicinity of my desktop to finish working on it. So, with that said, today we embark on a multi-episode saga, thanks to Dean, who gave me this idea to put these episodes together way back in episode 209. And I actually forgot that this came from an episode, so let me go grab it real quick. Zombie Train 209. So let me find the exact wording. What the hell is wrong with YouTube? There's a Star Trek Discovery ad taking up the top half of the screen. Go away. No, go away. Wow, that's horribly annoying. It's covering up the video. Okay, there we go, fixed. Sorry about that. Anyways, that was episode 209, that was Plumbing, that was called, and where can I see the comments, please? It's not showing me the comments. Wow, everything's broken today. What did I do? Who did I anger to cause this? It's not showing me the comments. Alright, well, anyways, I think, wait, it's loading, there we go. There we go, it just took a second. How did you convert the coaches to what they needed to be? How long did it take to convert just one? Well, I'll start off by saying that it was varying lengths of time for each coach, but to give a ballpark, maybe a couple of months, depending. And that was oftentimes we did some pretty serious remodeling, and the couple months include sort of concepting. It was a lot quicker for some coaches, and the one we're going to start out with, we're going in order from the engine back. The one we're going to start out with was fairly simple. It didn't involve too many big changes, or really any, except for pulling out all the seats and shining up everything nice. So, the first coach in the train is the war room, and it's normally perched right behind the auxiliary tender, which is actually just a tank car, and the extra hoppers of coal that we tow around with us. So, that said, it was not one of the first that we actually worked on, and it sat there as the first car in the consist for a while, without much change. We did remove the seats pretty early on, because we knew that we didn't need seats. And those were the kind of things where we just sort of got rid of. Stuck in a warehouse or wherever. We didn't need them. So, most of the seats went away very quickly. And I'll get to the ones where that was more important in later episodes. But in the war room, they were mainly done just to get some space open. And the reason that the first coach became the war room is because it was easier for us, to dismount the engine, walk back a few cars, go in, and talk. Instead of going back several cars. Because we would just tell people to meet us up front near the engine, and so that was as close as it got. But we started, we had the idea that, okay, we need to make this area sort of a planning area. So we started with the coach, as it was, and the first thing we wanted to bring in was a table. The first table we got our hands on was out of a bar. It was a pool table, and we kept that table through all the way into the Zombie Train Incorporated because we never felt like changing it out. It was terrible to write on, but that was less of a problem. We had this table in the middle that you could sort of scoot around on either side. You had enough room to get around it on the sides. I assume it was a full-size pool table, but I don't know pool that well. So, we had this table, we had some desks that were lined up on one wall, so the pool table was right in the middle, towards the front of the coach, on the left side of the train, we had these two desks that were just full of papers, and, we'd do a lot of concepting, plans, whatever, on those things. Opposite them, we had a area where we had actually covered off the windows, and we would hang big maps up there. And that was the kind of thing where we'd hang the map up, we'd draw all over it. Later, we got this giant piece of plate glass, and that was one of the first things where it was like, oh, let's get this into the train. How the hell did we get this into the train? And you couldn't get it in through the vestibule and turn it. So what we did was we had to uncouple the first few cars and then open the front door of that coach and then slide the piece of glass in, and then we hung it from the ceiling in front of whatever we needed. And we actually had the bottom sort of tied up so we could pull on this rope, and it would pull the front of the pane of glass up and out of the way so that you could slide in something else underneath it. Because what we used it for was we got, dry erase markers or, wet erase markers or whatever we could get our hands on that would just make a mark, and then we could get rid of it. And so then we'd draw on the maps with that, and that was much less permanent, and we went through fewer maps, which was good, because those, you can't exactly find a printing office easily. So that is there. That was like the front half of the coach. The back half of the coach was mostly filing cabinets, which we managed to get in there. The filing cabinets were some of the first things in. The pool table was the first thing in. We wanted to bring the desks in, but we were like, okay, let's hold on a minute and think about it. So we ended up taking the legs off the pool table again, setting out on the floor so we could get stuff past it and over it. We actually put some big dents in that thing because people would step on it when it was on the floor. We didn't think that would be an issue, but nobody really thought that hard about it. And we were carrying filing cabinets and standing on a pool table. That was not the brightest moment for any of us. But we got these filing cabinets over there. We got shelves, which we'd roll up the maps and keep them on. So that was the back end of the coach, was mostly storage of what, in effect, was office supplies. And and then the rest of the interior of the coach was relatively unchanged. It was, the hardwood flooring, which we had to fill in and cover over all the little holes that were left when we pulled the chairs out. And speaking of which, we did not have any chairs, except for two, one for each desk. There was no way to sit around the table. There wasn't really enough room to sit around the table and have a discussion, so everyone would stand either up against the wall, basically, or at the opposite ends of the table to talk about what was going on. And the thing was not a good conference table. It was too big, it was too wide, you couldn't reach across it and point to something, and that's why eventually we got rid of it. But the reason we got rid of it is because when we were remodeling Quonset to set up for the Zombie Train Incorporated, people wanted an actual pool table. So we took it out, we put it in there, and we sort of left them to it, because like I said, it had some holes in it, it had some dents. At some point along the way, during the Zombie Train Incorporated, we got some big pieces of plywood and laid them over the pool table top. That was after we put the holes in it, because it was annoying to write on, like I said. And so they took that off expecting a pristine pool table, and they got one with big holes and dents in it. So, we sort of got a laugh out of them, or we got to laugh at them, and basically said, you can fix this when you fix the windows and the floors and the things that you're supposed to be working on. And this was a crew from, they were Donatio's old staff. I think I've talked about Donatio before. He was the sort of antagonist of the Islanders, the Block Islanders. Anyways, they were the butt of a lot of things. So, and then we had these chandeliers, and we started off with chandeliers. We started off with whatever was in the coach initially, which wasn't too flashy. They were sort of these lighting ornaments, which were nice. Some of them were stained glass, and those are the original ones. And then there were some replacements that weren't so nice. This was unique to this coach, and we ended up moving them to other coaches, because what we wanted in that coach were some bright light fixtures. And so we ended up using these glass, sort of domes almost, with, high-powered light bulbs inside of them. We used incandescents for that. And then eventually moved over to fluorescents and LEDs when we could get our hands on them. They were not that common. You could find incandescents everywhere. But the thing with the other ones is they'd last so much longer. So, the War Room was one of the first to get this very bright lighting, so that you could see everything that was written, and you could see, if we had to either make a copy of something. We had this thing, and this was something that was engineered by the crew of the zombie train as a whole. I'm not going to take full credit for it, but it was a thing for making copies, and what it was this sort of apparatus where you'd sit under it. It almost looked like an easel, but you'd sit under it, and you'd have the piece of paper you want to copy, and then right behind it you'd have the piece of paper that you're copying to. So you'd be able to write and have the light from the overhead lights, which, as I said, is quite bright, coming through the paper so that you could draw over it. And obviously we didn't have a photocopier, so that was our ghetto method of making copies. And we didn't have carbon paper either, which would have been very nice. The amount of clerical work that we actually did on the zombie train is kind of excessive. But it turned out that we could do a lot. We could do a lot of it because we had the supplies for it, because we would just gather these supplies from offices and things like that, because who the hell is going to make off with that kind of stuff during the zombie apocalypse? And then people who needed paper and pens, or, copies, or maps, or, any of these things, any sort of thing for tabulation, which a lot of these smaller farms, they're used to using computers, they don't have power now, they're used to using Excel, and now they need, they need calculators, like one of those solar calculators. We used to stock up on those, because you'd roll up to like an elementary school and you'd be able to find 50 of them or 100 of them, if not more, and everyone needed them, because you don't think about how easy and simple it is to do math when you have a phone in your pocket that you can just do math on. Whereas, on the flip side, if you're not in an area where you have sort of city public schools, not, obviously public school is kind of a constant across the United States, but there are, places where it's much less emphasized or much less funded, and so we'd encounter people that weren't too good at math, and that mostly would use a calculator to get by. And these obviously weren't the same people that were using Excel all day long, but there was some overlap. But the point is, people needed calculators. And I had never thought about how much of a resource that was until I didn't have access to one. So, rechargeable batteries too. Rechargeable batteries were awesome to have, because then you can have things which, you can have battery-powered things, and you don't need to find new batteries all the time. You just get a power source and charge them up, and I don't feel like I need to be explaining this, but I am. But, we did a lot of clerical stuff, and we could make some pretty good trades for either work that we could do, because we had the manpower, we had the supplies, or just the supplies in general. And a lot of that was done in the war room, because it was like the offices of the zombie train. When we were on the move, and I wasn't sitting down hashing out plans, that's when even more work went on in there that was unrelated to the zombie train as a whole, or more related to specific things. The amount of supplies that we have, stuff like that. We had to keep good tallies of this stuff, which I don't think surprises anybody, but it was more work than we had initially expected. than we had really thought about. There's a lot that goes into it that you don't think about on the surface. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. Trainman out.